This is one that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've ranted about this so many times, and hopefully, this is the last time that I rant about this. But I know that it won't be the last time because it keeps coming back up. And it's the idea of token listings. Everybody talks about token listings. Everybody wants their token listed. Everybody questions why their token isn't being listed, especially if we're talking about top tier exchanges and how difficult the token listing process is. And then especially in EOS, when we talk about, well, we've got exchanges that are block producers, so why aren't they listing tokens, EOS based tokens or EOS native tokens on their exchanges, etc. And that's what I want to talk about today. And a big part of why I want to talk about this, obviously where this comes from and why I see this so frequently, is because we have very few EOS based tokens listed on top tier exchanges, and why that might be and what's required for that to happen. So for those who have gone through the process, it's not that it's necessarily complicated, but there are some key pieces of information that are key milestones to achieve before getting a token listed. And the first one typically is the legal opinion. And so you need to go through a reputable, and I say reputable somewhat lightly because every exchange has their own guidelines and or requirements for what is considered reputable in terms of what they accept in terms of a legal opinion, where it comes from, who can do it, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes they've got preferred partners, other times they've got specific jurisdictions that legal opinion needs to come from. And then there's a certain price point as well in terms of what level of experience that either that firm or that lawyer needs to have for them to be comfortable in accepting that legal opinion. And when I talk about legal opinion, I'm referring back to the idea that you need a legal opinion that showcases that your token is not a security. So that's generally the idea. And sometimes you need more than one legal opinion. You need, for example, I know of one exchange that you need a legal opinion based in the United States, and you need one from the jurisdiction in which your company or your token is registered in. And others, you just need one, and oftentimes it's from the United States. And then the law firms that are producing these opinions can't just be any law firm. So oftentimes, especially if we're talking about the top tier exchanges, that law firm needs to be of a selected group of law firms or of a certain reputation where they've done, a lot of these before. And essentially the idea is that should that opinion be challenged, because again, going back, these opinions are essentially a kind of a research based on your project, based on what they know, based on what you tell them, and they do a bunch of research, and it's an opinion. So it's not a certification. It's an opinion that based on XYZ criteria, based on all the information that we got, that to the best of our knowledge, and we are a reputable law firm, and we've done a lot of these, and if ever we're being called, we will be able to go and defend our opinion, etc. Because they're putting their stamp of approval on this. Essentially, they're putting their reputation on the line. That we deem this token not to be a security. Therefore, from a regulatory standpoint, the exchange should feel comfortable in listing this token. So that process is expensive, as you can imagine. I've seen legal opinions ranging from $5,000 to $50,000, but I've seen the $5,000 legal opinions are rejected more often than not, and the $50,000 give or take US dollar opinions accepted more often than not. That's just your first step. That's just after you've engaged with them. They might be interested. You've given a deck of what your project is. You've shown them how much volume you have, the size of your community, your milestones, how much funding you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of stuff before that. But let's assume that you're in a position where the exchange deems that, yes, they're at least interested in looking at whether or not they should they'd like to list you, because there seems to be a right fit there, and it's going to be beneficial for both parties. Get your legal opinion done. You've got that done. Now you've got listing fees. People often complain about listing fees, and the listing fees, depending on the exchanges, can range, and depending on the market we're in. So obviously in a hot market, Their resources are limited, and so they need to, it's supply and demand, and so they need to choose where they want to dedicate their human resources. And obviously, the highest bidder, just like in any other market, it's a free market. Then prices go up in order to filter out, so there's less applications. Just standard. But let's say that applications typically will range between 600,000 US dollars to, I've seen up to $2 million, a little over $2 million for an application for a token project. And those funds, people complain. What are those funds going for? Well, in large part, it's marketing. Another big part of that, obviously, is the staff required to do the research. There are people on the other side. These exchanges are doing research on your project. And ideally, if you've ever gone through this process, the idea is that both parties want to win. Both parties want to get something out of this. They want so they, being the exchange, want your listing to be successful. They want all eyes to be on your project. They want people to see that they've now included your community in this. Because again, it's kind of onboarding a community onto their platform. And so there are costs to that. There's a marketing team, there's the legal team, they've got to do their reviews. And then there's a big part of this is the DevOps team, the engineering team. And this is where I think people need to understand that this is where my rant really gets poignant to, specific to EOS, is people question why it's so easy to get ERC20 tokens listed and why it's so difficult to get EOS tokens listed. Completely different machines, completely different beasts. At this point, all of the exchanges have DevOps teams and they've got engineers that are comfortable with the ERC20 token standard. It's a standard. So adding an extra project on there, all their API calls, all of the work that they need to do in order to have the necessary infrastructure in place and monitoring tools, et cetera, in place to be able to accept tokens. Adding one more to the list, I'm running out of time. Adding one more to the list is actually pretty easy. Whereas in EOS, it's quite complex. The performance of EOS requires a specific skill set. And so oftentimes they need to hire extra staff. That's CapEx on their end. And so to justify that, they definitely need the volume. They need the transaction fees. And a lot of the times the projects in EOS have not been able to, I guess, showcase the amount of transaction volume or the 24-hour volume that would be justified for the exchange to list this token, in great part because there are economics. These are businesses. And so the idea is that they need to be able to generate enough cash flow to be able to pay for the extra staff and to pay for everything. So that's the second part of things. That's the listing fee. And then on top of that, typically you have market making fees. And those market making fees are where oftentimes in EOS, they're a big roadblock on top of the listing fee for the projects, because market making fees can range between, again, maybe $5,000, $10,000 a month to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month. And so all of that combined is why you see way more ERC20 tokens listed, because it's so much easier. And you see very few tokens listed on EOS because it's more complex. In large part, what we have in other ecosystems are foundations that have been able to come and help these projects get listed. And once you have a certain amount, then it's much easier for the exchange to follow through afterwards. But it's not going to remove the legal requirements for the legal opinion letter. It's not going to remove the actual cost for the exchange to market the listing and to actually pay the staff to onboard the APIs or all the technical requirements to list, etc. And that's the rent today. It's not that easy, and we're working towards that. That is something that the foundation will be able to come and help support.